Joseph's Day. But before we get started, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up so that way you can keep on growing. Now, growing up, St. Joseph's Day was actually one of my favorite food holidays. And that's because we always made this amazing pasta dish, which I typically would only eat on St. Joseph's Day. But as the years went by, I started requesting St. Joseph's Day pasta, which is what I refer to it in my household, and multiple times throughout the year. And so now I make it pretty frequently, but today is the day where traditionally we would always make it at home, kind of celebrate the feast day and eat some delicious food. So I'm here to share the recipe with you today, but this is not the first time that I'm actually sharing St. Joseph's Day pasta on this channel, because last year to celebrate, I created a short video with the recipe and a link to a blog post where I have it all written out with all the instructions. So after this video, if you want to go make it yourself, I'll have it all linked down below, so that way you too can celebrate St. Joseph's Day with a delicious bowl of pasta. But at the end of the video, I actually have one more surprise for you. So if you stay tuned, we can cook together, we can eat together, and we can celebrate St. Joseph's Day. Now, let's get cooking. Okay, so to get started, we are going to take our onion. I use a whole onion in this recipe because we're using a pound of pasta. I like that ratio. If you are not as much into onion, then I would say maybe use half or a little more than half. But I usually like to use a whole onion, which I don't actually know how much that typically measures to, but this is the size of the onion that I'm using today for reference. We're just gonna go ahead and chop that up. And I'm using this, or I've started using this lately, which is to hold my cutting board in place. I believe this is like a shelf liner. I kind of just bought a roll of it and then rolled it out and kind of cut it to the size that I needed. This fits pretty well. You can see it doesn't really move, which is something I always had issues with. Unless you had like a really nice big block cutting board, I felt like my cutting board would move all the time, which tends to be, kind of unsafe, not something you really want happening in your kitchen. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, I think this part is supposed to hold the onion together, and then we should be able to just like make thin slits. And I think this will help us actually mince it. Oh no, my eyes. I'm starting to feel the onion burn. Oh, goodness. Okay, so this looks like I did something correct. Oh, the onion burn. You know, the worst part of the onion burn is I am operating a knife right now. So like, I don't want my eyesight. Oh no. Oh, yeah, that burns and we're only halfway through the onion. Wow. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Fast forward, onions chopped. Now. The death onions are chopped. I have my battle wounds from, the experience with my eyes being super red. But we have lived to tell the tale, and I'm gonna move all these onions into a bowl. Let me know, truly, if anyone has any suggestions about how to avoid that. I've definitely, in the past, worn goggles to help avoid the burn, which have helped, but never dared to do that on camera. I also have not had it that bad in a long time. I mean, this is a pretty fresh onion. I don't know if that affects it at all. We've got our onions. It's a lot of onions, I'm not gonna lie, but this dish doesn't have too many ingredients in it, so onions definitely help bring out that flavor. We're gonna saute them down in some olive oil, and before we do that, we're going to take some parsley, and we're gonna chop that up too. Also, this is a good task for if you have like any kids around or someone who just wants to socialize and help out, but you don't really want to give too many, things to do when you're cooking. Taking the parsley off the stems is a great way to get someone else involved with your cooking process. So growing up, this was a recipe that I liked so much that most birthdays I would ask for this to be my birthday meal, maybe sometimes with homemade pasta, but it still was, something that I craved all the time. I don't know what about it. I think maybe just the pasta and the chickpeas, which I don't think I mentioned yet. That's our other main ingredient in this dish. It all comes together in a way that just is so comforting for me. So I'm curious if you have any foods like that for from when you were growing up, if there's anything that, you know, you just crave and find so comforting, or something that's maybe one of your favorite dishes that you would make on special occasions, whether it's a holiday or, you know, just a certain time of year. This is definitely one for me. I have a few, I think, you know, that I'll kind of keep in my rotation, but this is one that I get excited for every year, and then usually it kickstarts my year of, oh yes, I want this more often, and, you know, start making it more and more and more. But now that we have a good amount of parsley, and we're just going to roughly chop it. So we've got our parsley, and we're just gonna move it over to our bowl. Now we're going to open 2 cans of chickpeas and drain them off, and then it's time to head over to our stove because we're gonna start bringing this pasta dish together. Okay, so let's start by taking a giant pot of water and bringing this up to a boil, and we're gonna add some salt. We wanna make it as salty as the sea. And while that is boiling, we can start sauteing our onions. So let's put some olive oil into our pan. Ooh, that's a lot, but that's okay. This recipe, you know, mainly is relying on some olive oil and salt to kind of bring everything together. We're also going to reserve some of that pasta water a little bit later on, which if you've never done that before, what you're really looking to grab when you take that pasta water is the starch that comes off of the pasta, because that actually can kind of help emulsify a sauce that comes together. This sauce is really mainly just with the oil, but that pasta water will still help all of the good bits that we're cooking together or cooking with, you know, kind of cling to the pasta. But it's similar to, like, I don't know if you've made like a sauce that has a cornstarch slurry. You take some cornstarch, you add a little water, and you kind of whisk it together and then pour it into your sauce. It's common in Asian cooking, or maybe specifically like Chinese American dishes. I've seen it a lot with, or traditional Chinese dishes as well. But they do that so they can thicken the sauce up. I always thought that it was similar, you know, a similar approach when we take the pasta water. We're kind of using that to help thicken and bring everything together, just in a different way, and a very resourceful way, because it's pretty cool. It's just the water that you've boiled your pasta in. But now that this is a little bit warm, we should be able to go and add just our onions first. And again, this is a lot of onions for people, but I prefer an entire onion in here. I think that once it's cooked down, it kind of goes nice, especially because it is a pound of pasta, so kind of divides up in the end. And we're just gonna be cooking this down until it starts to wilt and smells fragrant. But maybe a minute or two before I think we're there, kind of like halfway cooked, that's when we're gonna toss in so much garlic. Which, you know, this is one of those recipes that it's kind of hard to mess up, because all you really need to make sure you do is have all of the ingredients together. And once you make it once, you'll kind of know how you like it, and that's why I like including an entire onion in it. I'm not sure if my mom used this much onion in her recipe when she would make it, or if her or my dad have different preferences, but this is mine. I like a whole onion. Comment down below and if you think this is too much onion or not. I'm curious what people's preferences are, because now that I'm cooking it, it does look like a lot, but it's what I like, and I recommend trying it. I think it's good. Okay, so now I think we're at a point where we can take our garlic and add that in as well. So I have all of my garlic. It's supposed to be around 5 cloves. Some were gigantic and some were a little bit smaller, so let's give or take 5 cloves. And we're gonna use our trusty garlic press for this. So I'm just gonna press it straight into the pan. Oh my gosh, look how giant that clove is. Okay, so now we've got all of our garlic in there. Now it was just St. Patrick's Day, because St. Joseph's Day is only a couple days after St. Patrick's Day. So I'm curious if you celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and if you did, if there's any food that you typically eat, whether it's traditional or you're just dyeing some pancakes green. If there's anything that, you know, you like to do to celebrate, maybe some corned beef and hash or other traditional Irish food. Just curious, I like to share in that. Maybe next year I'll do a St. Patrick's Day video, or I could still do some Irish food, you know, this year. Just let me know. I'm curious. I like trying, you know, foods that are important to people and that have, you know, emotional impacts on someone's day or someone's upbringing or things like that, just like this pasta did for me. So I'm curious, let me know in the comments below if you did anything for St. Patrick's Day, or maybe you're celebrating St. Joseph's Day too. And if you are, let me know if this is a pasta you've made before, or if you have a different variation of it. Okay, so now the onion and garlic is cooked down. You can see it's like basically shrunk to almost half the size. And we're gonna add in 2 cans of chickpeas. Now, I was actually watching a video earlier today where someone made their own beans just from dried beans. That's something that I've never done before, so I'm definitely curious to try making my own beans and seeing how much of a difference it makes. They were saying that it makes a pretty big difference when you cook your beans from dry. And apparently you can just like soak them overnight, and then the next day they're much easier to kind of just boil off for like half an hour depending on the bean, or maybe an hour. And the other thing that is interesting to me is like you can boil those beans in broth or with other aromatics or things like that to kind of add other flavor. But the person's video I was watching, they were saying that it makes such a difference with texture, which I never really thought about. That, you know, beans are in a liquid when, you know, we just drain the liquid off, you know, when you open them. So, you know, having it stored in that liquid, I'm sure would affect the texture a bunch. So I thought that was interesting, just something I never thought about. So also let me know if you've ever made beans, you know, from dried beans. I'm sure there are people out there who are like, I can't believe you've only had canned beans, but it's not something that I've ever made before, and definitely curious to try it out and get good at it, because I love beans. Beans are great. And chickpeas, I think, probably are my favorite bean. I mean, they're so versatile. They are the base of hummus, so can't go wrong there. And as you've probably figured out, they're in one of my favorite pasta dishes. Now, since the chickpeas are cooked through, all we're really doing here is just trying to get them fully incorporated with the onions, which you can see once it's all kind of mixed like this, the onions kind of just marry with the chickpeas, and it doesn't really feel like there is an uneven distribution, like everything kind of blends perfectly. So now our chickpeas, onions, and garlic are cooked down to my liking. So I'm just gonna move that off to the heat, and it's time to boil our pasta, which this specific pasta says it will take between 9 to 11 minutes. I highly recommend, if you're cooking a pasta that you've never cooked before, like a shape you've never made, just to check the back of the instructions. I, you know, perfectly all the time will just toss it in, figure out when it's done, taste it, do whatever I need to do to make sure I've gotten it done correctly. But I have been trying different pasta shapes lately, and I feel like sometimes it's really helpful to just read the back of the instructions. That might be common knowledge for a lot of people, but I'm so used to just eyeballing things in the kitchen. So specifically for this pasta, it takes a pretty long time, 9 to 11 minutes. So let's get this in and get cooking. Now, when working with a long pasta like this, I can kind of find it hard to get the pasta to go down and cook properly, which is why we, should probably be using a pot much bigger and taller, like you've seen kind of like sauce pots. But if you just guide the pasta around with, a spoon or spatula or things like that, you should be able to kind of get the pasta to cook down and fit into your pot. And in my case, it's got to, because this is the largest pot I've got with me right now. So while the pasta cooks, we're actually going to take breadcrumbs and we're going to toast them in the pan, just with some olive oil, or a different pan, not the one that we were using before. And we're toasting them basically until they get golden brown. So my recipe that I have written out says about half of a cup. So, in the spirit of just hanging out together, I'm gonna eyeball this because this is a topping. It's not going to get mixed in. However, you can kind of mix it in if you'd like to. Typically, I just top it on top of the pasta. Same with the parsley. Sometimes I like to mix it in. Sometimes I just put it on top. But growing up, both of those were just toppings added on top of the pasta, not necessarily tossed all together. So this is also going to get tossed with some olive oil. So I'm just gonna add a little bit in to kind of help toast this up. So you can see that right now the breadcrumbs are this pale, almost like white brown color. And so once they're all toasted together, they should kind of turn more of a golden brown. So that's what we're looking for. So obviously this is for the Feast of St. Joseph, which is a religious holiday. So in my blog post, I have a bit more about how this meal was traditionally used to represent different parts of St. Joseph. And this, the choice of adding breadcrumbs was supposed to be representative of like wood shavings or sawdust. That's not wood shavings. Sawdust is the word I was looking for, because St. Joseph was a carpenter. And just those little, little things, added into the dish kind of represent, the reason that this, the celebration and this day exists. I always thought were so cool. Whether you're religious or not, I think that this is a holiday that is typically, you know, has more emphasis in the Italian culture. And over the years, you know, this recipe has been passed down or has been altered in different ways. But like when I was originally writing this recipe and kind of making it how I grew up with it, I found a lot of representation of other families that did something similar. And I thought that was really cool. Even just these added elements and this intention in the dish was really awesome. And not to mention, it tastes pretty good. So this color is exactly what we're looking for. You can tell, you know, if you remember from before, that light, almost white color that the breadcrumbs originally were. Now it has this beautiful golden brown that really does kind of look like sawdust, which is pretty cool. While I was mixing this together, I actually grabbed some pasta water. So I just dunked like 1 cup into the pasta water and grab that off to the side because it's just about time to drain the pasta, and then we're gonna go put everything together and give it a taste. Okay, our pasta is cooked, and now we're just gonna add it back into our pot. Okay, so now let's add in our chickpeas, onions, garlic, all that goodness. Oh my God, it smells so good. It's like one of those smells, I'm sure you have one as well, that's just like, this smells like, you know, like brings me back to memories of childhood. And you know what's really funny is, for me, the smell actually reminds me a little bit more of summer. Maybe I really asked for this pasta more than I remember, but it is only March right now. This was not something that was, you know, the holiday's not in the summer. You just want to mix all of that together. Now, when I originally was doing research for this recipe, I saw that a lot of people also used ditalini, which are those tiny little, like tubular, like it's if you cut like rigatoni, like rigatoni into like small little pieces, but it was less of a big hole, more of a small hole. I don't know if that was a necessary description. I'll put the photo on screen so you can see what that pasta shape is like. I think originally the intention was because the ditalini is like the same size as the chickpea. So I feel like that was, you know, that's another pasta type that I've seen for this dish, or one of the many variations. So if this is something that you know, grew up with or that you've made before, I'm curious how you make it. But for me, to top off all of this, all we're going to need to do is take a little bit of this pasta water. We're just gonna do a nice little splash. Then we're gonna do a drizzle of olive oil. We're gonna take our parsley, and I sometimes like to add, I think I was saying this before, like to add the parsley into it, but you also can just do it as you're serving as well. Same with the breadcrumbs, but to kind of serve the whole thing, I like to do everything all mixed together. And then we're going to top it all with some fresh grated cheese. And then I'm just using pecorino. You could use parm. Okay, let's try it. Been waiting, so feels like I've been waiting so long for it because I've been smelling it in the kitchen all afternoon. Okay, gotta get a little chickpea in there. Here we go. Pat on my back, because this is exactly what I wanted. It turned out perfectly, and again, I'll have that recipe linked down below if you want to go ahead and make this. But the one thing I will say about using a long pasta is you do have to kind of dig for those chickpeas. So sometimes I like to just kind of have a spoon, you know, if you're using a spider or like the proper utensil to get the pasta out, you might be able to scoop up those chickpeas a little bit better, which is probably why some recipes call for ditalini, because they're the same size as the chickpeas. But I like the long pasta, especially this style of pasta. I think it's delicious. So you just might need a spoon to help make sure you get some chickpeas tossed in there. And you can add as much or as little parsley on top or breadcrumbs on top. So make sure you let me know if you try one of my favorite pasta dishes out. And if not, I just hope you have a wonderful day, a happy St. Joseph's Day, and you waited this long. I have one more surprise, but I think we might need to run out and get it. So let's go. Okay, now if you've celebrated St. Joseph's Day before, you might know what this is. This is a zeppoli, or a fried dough, or as I grew up calling it, a St. Joseph's Day cake. Now, it is a zeppoli, a fried dough essentially, filled with this kind of like custard cream with, this one has a candied cherry on top. It looks like they actually, looks like they might have put some cherries on the inside as well. So all different variations of it, but it's a traditional treat on St. Joseph's Day. So I grew up with this pasta and then also going to a local bakery to pick these up. So I just went to the closest bakery that I was near to try my, you know, St. Joseph's Day cake. I've never had it from this bakery before, but there was a line and they were running low, so I was very nervous, but I just got one because they're huge. You see how big this is? So let's give it a taste. The custard cream is delicious. The fried dough still has a nice crunch to it and it's super doughy and fatty. I love it. Absolutely love it. If you're a zeppoli fan or a donut fan or a fried dough fan, any of the above, then you definitely want to try these out. So if you don't make your pasta, then check your local Italian bakery and see if they have any St. Joseph's Day cakes, zeppolis, or treats for St. Joseph's Day. However they might refer to them near you. These are definitely worth picking up and one of my favorite treats on this special occasion. And we are so close to 1,000 subscribers. So if you made it this far in the video and you're not subscribed to my channel yet, then please consider subscribing so that way we can keep on growing. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had some great food today and you enjoyed your time hanging out with me on St. Joseph's Day. I will see you again soon. Bye!